Welcome to Aiken This Week. I'm Glenn Parker. Joining us this week is the city's horticulturist, Tom Rapp. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You've been with the city a while. Why don't you tell us how long you've been with the city and a little bit about yourself?
30 years.
30 years.
Well, you're happy to know I graduated from Clemson, ornamental horticulture, and came on to the city probably a year, 2 years after I graduated. Started in '76. Actually was the city's first horticulturist that they'd ever had. And was fortunate enough to get my certified arborist accreditation, and so a lot of times I'll put a little slash in there that I'm city horticulturist arborist. And just been a fun ride, and I'm responsible basically for everything that grows out there other than the PRT facilities. Take care of the parkways. We've got 176 of them, and Hopelands and the right-of-ways that are in the city limits. So good bit of stuff to watch over.
Sure it is.
Yeah.
Sure it is. That's one of the things that makes Aiken special. And that's,
It is.
people
is.
look at you when it goes good or when
Yeah,
it goes
right,
bad.
right.
They look at you
Yep,
both
yep.
times. Now, I know you can't do all this alone. How big's your crew that works with you?
We've got, when we're full force, I've got 15 people on staff, and they do various things anywhere from, we're in charge of the irrigation system. We've got all the streetscape parkways, and those are the ones with a lot of planting in them. Those are all irrigated, and we're trying to get, I guess we're probably 50% through trying to get them all computerized so we can turn them on and off with a computer, and a lot of savings in water. We can tell whether we have a break out there, and it shuts it down on its own and helps us to go find where we have problems. So that's a big thing. Tree crew, I've got a tree crew that stays busy all the time, 12 months out of the year, doing tree work. And we not only do what I've got, but we'll help your old place, PRT, with stuff. We'll help public safety with things, and got a good crew that's able to do that. I've got 3 inmate crews. And have a supervisor that runs each one of those. One does litter control in the city, one does, I guess we call it maintenance, a lot of mulching and remulching of areas that you've probably seen around town. And they also do cutbacks if we have a site problem, and they'll come in and cut it back, and just kind of general, more of that kind of maintenance. They stay busy all the time. and then they do a little bit of mowing, like the houses out in Crossing Park that we own, they do those. And then I've got an actual mowing crew that does all the streetscape parkways that I was telling you about, and they're more manicured. And I've got, we do Hopelands. I got a crew out there, and that crew actually 2 times that they'll work out there, and then I'll put them in the parkways. They kind of do it on their own, but they're responsible for some things in the parkways that the other crews don't do. And then I've got a weed control crew. And they can tell you I'm a stickler on weeds, so they stay real busy, and not so much in the winter when things are not growing, but they're real busy in the summer.
We'll talk specifically about those guys in a little bit. Yeah. The parkways you mentioned, there's 176 of them.
Yes.
It's good and bad.
Yes.
It was the original layout of the city. I think it's pretty much still the way it was originally laid out. And you guys take care of those year round. What all's involved in just taking care of the parkways? It's not just mowing grass.
Well, a lot of it is seasonal. In March, April, when things start growing, we get real busy, and that goes through about, say, November, October, November. The weather is so crazy, a lot of times you don't know when you're going to start or stop. And so they're doing a lot of the stuff I mentioned. They're mowing every day, and I also have a parkway crew that just does the normal parkways that aren't fancy, that aren't streetscape. But they're doing that day in, day out mowing. And they have a route and they'll roll over. They'll get through with, the route, and then they just start over. And the timing is pretty good. It needs it when they roll over. So that works. And then winter is, and weed control that I mentioned is a big thing, during the summer, fall, spring season. And then fall, winter, when things kind of settle down and stop growing, we're just kind of maintaining and get everything ready. We'll do a final prune on a lot of stuff that'll hold it through the winter. And we do some mulching in the summer, but a good bit of it is done in the winter months. And always doing tree work. Tree work's 12 months out of the years. And we do a little bit of mowing in the winter on the streetscape parkways, just to pick up leaf debris and pine straw, just to kind of keep them somewhat neat, but not as frequent as we do in the summer with them.
You don't overseed any of the parkways?
No, I did years ago, and just the cost and that extra having to do that, I could use those people elsewhere, more beneficial, so I just stopped it.
Now, if occasionally trees are going to die in the parkways, tell us how you go about selecting what trees go back into the parkways.
We have, and I can't tell you, Glenn, when this came about or how it came about. These little sayings come up, but we do try. There's a saying that we try to replace 2 for every 1 we take out. Mm-hmm. And I do try to do that. Most of the time, you can't put 2 back right where you took that one out. Either there's not enough room for 2, or there may be power lines and you're limited, or it just doesn't work a lot of times that you can do that. But we'll plant that other one somewhere else. And generally, I have to do a thing for our Tree City USA info sheet for them, and almost always we've almost planted 2 to every 1 we've taken down. And I just pick trees that I feel like will do well in our soil conditions. Mm-hmm. And they don't get watered generally with irrigation. I've got a water crew, the same weed crew has to water, and they go around and try to keep them. Like this summer's been a bear, trying to keep up with keeping them alive. So I try to pick those kind of things. I try to pick some different ones for diversity. Diversity is a big thing. You don't want all the same tree. Sure. In the parkway. If something comes in, it's going to wipe all your tree population out. And things of interest with color, if I can get that, and that sort of thing. But winter's a fun time. I get to go around all and put flags out and see the new trees get planted. So I enjoy doing that.
Now, if somebody's got a tree that grew up at grandmama's house and they want to see the tree in Aiken, can they just plant a tree in our parkways?
We prefer not. And the reason for that is some of the stuff I was saying before, but they could plant it in a place. Maintenance is a real big issue, and when I do place the trees, I'm looking at being able to maintain around them as far as mowing grass, and a lot of times I'll put them in an existing mulched area, so I know I don't have to do any kind of maintenance as far as mowing around them. And they could plant it wrong. They could plant it, like I said, in the wrong place. They could plant possibly the wrong tree that just isn't gonna survive. But we would, if somebody wanted a tree, and I've had this come up every once in a while, planted somewhere, and it was the right time of the year, and we had it, and I felt like it would work, I would go out and plant that tree for them. If that came up. I don't have that come up as much as, I don't know if you knew we have a memorial tree program. And people can call in, and it's $100, and they can they can tell me where they want it, and I can pretty much accommodate, and we'll plant it in the fall, winter. And generally I can, according to where they want it, I can plant the tree they want also. So that's worked real well. We also do that in Hopelands too with the trees.
Okay.
But so that works out. So they could contact me, about that, and we could work something out.
Okay.
Always glad to plant a tree in the park.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of our parkways are in residential areas. People have guests come to their homes, or they just don't have the room. Can you park in the parkways?
No.
No.
Can't drive in them either.
Okay.
And you can park in them, but your two outside wheels have to be on pavement.
Sure.
So you're actually parking in them, so to speak, but you're far enough off. And the reason for that, for not driving in them and parking in them, is the main thing is the compaction for the tree roots. Even a lot of people walking through parkways or on property can compact, and it just is not good for the trees. And of course, the other reason is just us to try to maintain them. If there's a car parked there, then if we're mowing that part, we gotta mow around the vehicles, so it makes it difficult. And they leave marks, if they drive, you can tell in a week if somebody's starting to drive across parkways. Yeah,
sure.
Right. So, answer is no. Please don't do that.
Yeah. Now, I know people like me who like to dabble in the yard with flowers and trees and things. I'm always anxious to see what you plant in the islands, in the beds, and then I'll run out and try to find whatever it is, and I can never find the combinations you have.
Mm-hmm.
Take us through that process of, what you do when you sit down and you say, okay, I'm going to do the fountain and how you decide what you're going to put in it.
Right. Flowers are a fun time. I
Sure.
like to do flowers. Have to do and it's 2 seasons. We plant the fall, winter stuff in October, and the spring, summer stuff in about April. And I have to order 6 months ahead of time. So I'm soon going to be sitting down and working on next year's spring stuff, April 16 stuff, to get that in. And the reason I have to do it so early is because it's a lot of stuff have you seen, and they have to order it in and know they can plan it. So they need to know. And I try some crazy stuff that makes it a little bit difficult for them to find it. So they need that time too. So I sit down, and the fall season is easier for me and quicker than the spring season, mainly because you got pansies and violas primarily, and I'll try some snapdragons. There's a lot of other neat stuff you can use, but it's cold susceptible, and in other words, it'll freeze.
Sure.
And I feel like if that's going to happen, it's going to destroy the bed, and I can't plant it back, plus wasting money, by planting that kind of stuff and knowing it may not make it. So we usually stick with pansy, viola, and snapdragon in the fall. So that one's a quick one, and there's not so much selection. I can just kind of go down the list and write that out. But I try to get color.
Yeah.
I try to change every year what I did the last year, then maybe even I go back to the year before, just so it's different. So I've heard people saying, well, what's he going to be planting in there next year, kind of
Sure.
thing. And a lot of times I look at what the surrounding is. Like if there's a red brick walkway around the bed, I'll try to stay away with some color that will clash, like a red flower. And even the plant material may bloom at a certain time, and I'll try to plant something that I know will blend with that plant, when it's in bloom. The spring, summer stuff is so wide open. There is so much stuff out there. It takes me twice as long to do.
Sure.
Plan those beds, and I'd have to say they're probably a little more fun to do because of that, and trying to figure out what'll work here and what'll work there, and a lot of times it doesn't happen, and we just kind of I'll send my girl out a lot of times to have to cut something back because it just didn't do like it should have, kind of thing. But it's a fun thing, and I enjoy doing it. And I think the people, get a kick out of driving by, and I get a lot of comments on the flowers.
Like I say, I always, I look at them, and then I'm, like you said, I wait till the next fall and I try to imitate. What was his combination back here? And I think one of your goals probably is, you want to get those pansies through the masters.
Right.
That's always tricky because you normally redo the beds, I think, right after the masters. That's tough sometimes because it starts warming up. It's hard to keep them.
Yeah, it's a little game you play. And also even Aiken's Macon, those beds that are right in that area, I'll try to plant something in there that I hope will carry over through that period. Because they're both those masters and Aiken's Macon are right on the border of needing to pull them, so yeah.
Okay. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about Crape Myrtles.
All right.
Favorite topic here in Aiken. There's been a lot of debate, a lot of publicity about it, and I know we have a lot of Crape Myrtles in our parkways and around town. I think your preference is probably not to prune them, but just tell us about, how do you maintain the Crape Myrtles around town, and then when there does come a time to prune a Crape Myrtle, what's the preferred method to prune a Crape Myrtle?
You won't see, just maybe skip around a little bit on that question, but you won't see a whole lot of Crape Myrtles that I've planted in the parkways because of their need for fertilizer.
Okay.
And I mean, that too, but moisture. So the parkways aren't getting watered, and all we are able to do really when we are watering trees is the new stuff. I can't go around and water a 5-year-old Crape Myrtle just to try to help it to bloom. So you don't see many of those out in the parkways. The ones we've got, we will take off the suckers. I don't know if you're familiar with that. They grow from the base down at the bottom, and just about all Crape Myrtles do that. And we take those off. And then if you got a crossing branch that crosses, we'll take one of those crosses off that are touching. Okay. And that's really it. There have been studies that side by side tree that was cut way back, maybe 3-4 feet, versus one that was left alone. The one that left alone actually bloomed as well, if not better, the next blooming season than the one that was cut way back. Sure. So I think it was something that they bloom on new wood. So there was the idea, well, if you cut them way back, they got all that new wood and they're gonna bloom that much better, but they really don't.
Okay, now I read somewhere recently that about this time of year, once your crepes have bloomed, you can actually go back in and cut them back just behind the bloom, and it can possibly generate a second bloom. Any truth to that?
Yeah, there is, and it more so on your early blooming varieties that will get through earlier than some of the later bloomers. Mm-hmm. And you can go in, like you said, just below where they've stopped blooming and cut that off, and it's a game with cold weather, but if you can get that new growth after you cut that off, it probably, and I've seen it happen, will bloom again. So you'll have a late bloom. Doesn't work on late bloomers though, because there just isn't enough time for that new growth to come up and bud and put out a bloom. Right. Okay. We don't do that again just because time.
Sure.
When you got 15 people, doing all this. But if you have one in the house, of course you could try that.
Okay. There's always concerns from people, and we hear about it a lot of times when tree trimming has to occur in the city. And for those of us who have lived through the ice storm, we understand and we appreciate some of that. So tell us why it's important. Why does the city trim trees, and why is it important?
Issue that always comes up, and I understand it because I don't like to see it either. It just destroys the shape, sure, of a tree when it has to be done. But SC&G is our primary line trimming crew in town just because of the size of the lines that we have, and that they do most of the city limit trees and lines. They do the contracting on their own to who they're going to get in each year. It generally changes every year according to how their bids go, and they are under a franchise agreement with the City of Aiken. So, and part of, or some of those requirements that pertain to me to get involved, where they have to come to me at the start of the year, and they have a map that they bring to my office, and they just show me the areas they're going to be cutting, and that's just to inform me where they're going to be, so I'm kind of aware of where problems might be with calls. And then I'll get, I can't say how many, it just kind of varies, but I have had years when they were trimming where I've had a phone call a week. And then sometimes this year it hasn't been real bad. It's probably where they are this year, not in some of the more sensitive areas. But I then go out, because most people are saying, you need to come look at this tree. They're destroying it, you know. So I'll go out, and they are required to do proper pruning techniques according to the International Society of Arboriculture.
Okay.
And they have to do a clean cut. They can't be flush. They can't leave a stub. And they have been asked, and they really are trying to do this, to cut back to a lead that's going away from the power line. So that they don't have to keep cutting that tree so much. And I talked to them about it. I said, you've got to look at it as a saving money venture, because maybe the next 3 to 5 years you come back, that tree may not have to be trimmed at all or as so much, because it's grown away from the power line. And then you see the V cut. That's when a tree is like directly under the power line, and that V cut is approved. It looks like the devil, but it's approved. And then you'll see the L cut, and that's where the line is more over on the side of the tree, so that they'll cut up under the wire, but then the other side is left, and that's an approved pruning technique for them. I would never do it, but they have their, oh gosh, Glenn, I had it 100 20 feet above is their right of way that they need to keep clear
above the power line,
and then 10 feet below and on the side.
Okay.
So, and that, you know, when you think about it, that's quite a lot, and they actually cut a little bit more than that. So they're trying to get on a 5-year cut instead of a 3-year cut.
Okay. So now, just to tie into that, I know part of your job also is to review plans for new development, new areas.
Right.
Proper planning, proper planting eliminates a lot of that. If you plant the right size trees.
Yes, and earlier I was mentioning when I go out and plant these trees, I'm looking where the power line is, and I'm limited. And a lot of times I'll do like an understory tree near them, like a dogwood or a redbud that I know won't get up in there, and they overlook those because they know the trees pretty well, and they'll skip it and won't do any trimming on it. But yeah, real important, and even for a homeowner, to stay away from those power lines, you know, that distance, that 10 feet, so it won't get cut.
Okay. Now you also get to maintain hopelands, rye patch. You talked about a little bit about that. Different animal.
Yeah.
In that you're preserving part of Aiken's history there with hopelands and rye patch. What's your responsibilities there?
Fun place out there. And it's kind of cool because it's sort of a joint venture out there. PRT does the rentals and we maintain it, and it's kind of cool to work together like that to keep the place nice for everybody. But I've got a good crew out there, and they do all the maintenance, mowing, trimming. We do some flowers out there also. the mulching and all that. So they stay pretty busy with that. And I guess the main challenge is, say, with the period we're in now, especially with the Monday concerts. So, and it's a working thing of trying to make sure with the weather, if we know, say for a wedding that's going to be on the weekend, we try to do it right before the wedding, but if we know maybe it's going to rain Friday and we can't, then we'll jump back to Thursday. But my crew does a real good job out there with that and trying to figure it out. So yeah, it's just, I was out there the other day and it's just a neat place to walk around, and always somebody out there.
Yeah, a few years ago, y'all had to take down some of the huge trees right by the Hall of Fame, and that's never fun to do.
Oh yeah,
but for the
sure.
safety of those folks that are walking, you have to do that.
Right, and the ice storm. I don't know if did you ever walk through there?
I did.
It was like,
it helped us out.
Yeah,
with our pruning.
yeah, definitely.
Now you have I think a memorial tree program. You mentioned that. You also have a memorial bench program.
We do.
Tell us
for
about
out
that.
there in Hopelands. We were doing the Charleston benches when I came here, and then the Friends of Hopelands decided they wanted to do teak benches, and it cost a little bit more. But I think the idea was the longevity of those versus the Charleston benches as far as them lasting. So now we're doing teak, and people generally call me, although they will call downtown and then they'll refer them back to me. They call me to know about it, and then I've got to let them know that there is going to be a spot for a bench, because you can soon have benches everywhere and kind of take away from the place. But so far we've been able to accommodate most people that call and want them, and we will purchase it. We'll get a plaque for it. If they want a plaque put on it, they give me the inscription, and I have that made and put it all together, and then we'll place it pretty close to where they want it if we can. But that's a good deal, and that I think that's about $750 for that. A lot of people will go together,
Family.
yeah, right,
Sure.
and pitch in and do it. And it's been, with the cost difference, I thought it may get reduced, but there's been a lot of teak benches put in out there. So
Good. Those look, they're
They
just
do.
a different class
They do,
of bench.
yeah.
They really are. You mentioned earlier that one of your pet peeves is weed control in the parkways. Talk about that. That's 176 parkways. You can't just go buy a gallon of herbicide and start
no,
spraying.
we go through a lot of a weed killer. We do, and they know my crew, all my staff knows I'm the Nazi. I can be driving down the road and pick something out, and it's like, how did he see that? But it's just, I just feel like weeds take away from the aesthetics of what we're trying to do here in town, and the more we can keep them at a level to where they're not too objectionable, then I think we need to try to do that. And unwanted growth in these streetscape parkways has gotten to be kind of a big job now. A lot of, oaks and cherries and vines and things are growing up in a lot of this stuff that we've got out there. And Roland Wyndham told me years ago that we didn't need to do a whole lot of beautification if we couldn't keep it up. And that has always stuck in my mind.
Sure.
I always feel like we need to do our best to keep it looking as the best we can with what we have.
Great. Was there anything else? We got a minute or so. Is there anything else you want to mention about what you guys do?
No, just I've got a great staff. Couldn't do it without them.
Sure.
And we work all well together, and thank you for being here and let me.
Well, I think you're one of those guys, you and your crews, y'all get watched as much as anybody in the city.
We do. We're the quarterback of the football team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You really are. You
Yeah.
really are. Well, thank you
Yeah.
for coming on. We appreciate it. Coming up in the next few weeks, Wes Funderburg will be here to join us and talk about the new website for the City of Aiken. Liz Stewart, chairman of the Planning Commission, will be joining us. And Sabina Craig is going to come on and talk about the engineering department and some of her responsibilities. Have a great week.